And we're back in the car on a Sunday like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Sunday morning here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So this coming week, well, starting today, but this coming week, we'll see the release of what is said to be, it will be, maybe not, the final reckoning, the last Mission Impossible movie in the, we could say it, spectacularly successful franchise. You know, a film franchise is great when when different people have different films as their top three, let's just say, or even their favorite. And I don't get any bonus points for this, but I got in on the ground floor. I saw Mission Impossible 1, I think it was May 22nd, 1996. I apologize if I got the dates wrong, but I'm not wrong by more than a day or so in either direction, I don't think. But I saw MI1 opening day at the Movies at Sunrise Mall, a theater which 28 years long since gone the way of the dodo. The last film that I saw at the Movies at Sunrise Mall is Alex Proyas' spectacular, still underseen, Dark City. And that was in February of 1998. I believe that is the last movie that I saw at my favorite place growing up to see a movie, the Movies at Sunrise Mall, Massapequa. The theater is not only gone, but the mall is about to be taken down. I think they're going to put up a what? They're going to put up an Amazon fulfillment center or possibly an Amazon Fresh, but it is very likely to be an Amazon something or other. But I saw Mission Impossible 1, 27, what the fuck am I talking about? 29! My dad was a CPA. Dad, I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. 1996, summer 96, good movie summer. You know, I thought there were a lot of terrific films that summer. Arnold in Eraser, kind of his least well-known big box office hit. The Rock with Sean Connery and Nick Cage, fucking Scream, not Scream the movie, but a scream of a movie. That wasn't Speed 2, Cruise Control. I forgot. Dragonheart with Dennis Quaid, the voice of Sean Connery. That was summer 96. But Mission Impossible was a film that when we first saw the teaser trailer, and I know it's difficult, let's say if you're under 35 for sure, to imagine a world in which Mission Impossible was just an old TV show. That's what it was. In the mid-1990s, Mission Impossible was that TV show from the 60s with the cool theme music, created by Lalo Schifrin. You know what other famous movie, important film for me? Lalo Schifrin did the main theme for the OG 1971 Don Siegel Dirty Harry, starring my guy, Clint Eastwood. And Schifrin was the guy who composed the bum, 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 bum. Yeah, it was him. Same guy. Very talented film composer, that's for sure. So Mission Impossible, the trailer, landed at the end of 1995. It's kind of, again, this only works if you're well over 40. But I remember being in the theater to see the movie Money Train. Not a good movie. Jennifer Lopez film debut, Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson playing the material like it's a straight up buddy comedy, and Jennifer Lopez is acting as though she's in a cop thriller with a romantic, menage a trois kind of angle. It's really not. It seems that it's going to go in the Jules and Jim direction, but it doesn't. But I remember seeing the teaser trailer for Mission Impossible, and it got me absolutely yoked to see the film. I will say to this day that the original Mission Impossible teaser, it's top 3, top 5 best teaser trailers ever made, because it shows scenes from the film without giving anything away. And they did the thing, this was kind of pioneered in the 90s, where they showed all of the large-scale action sequences in the trailer, but they did it in such a way where you had no idea what the movie was about. And there always have been complaints that trailers give away too much of the movie. That teaser didn't give away anything. It got everybody excited to see it. And the reviews were decent. They weren't great. But I was already a big Tom Cruise fan. I had seen A Few Good Men in theaters. I saw The Firm in theaters. I saw, I didn't see Far and Away. Not that good. Not that good. What else did I see in theaters of his? Interview with the Vampire. It's on my list of most overhyped movies. I mean, it's a good film, not a fan. And then, Cruise made his, if you want to call it a comeback, but in 96 he had two huge movies, Mission Impossible and then Jerry Maguire at the end of the year. I still want to understand. I want to understand how Cruise did not win Best Actor for Jerry Maguire. I love Jeffrey Rush, okay? Fantastic Shakespeare in Love supporting role. He's a fucking scream. He's an absolute riot. Jeffrey Rush in Shine, akin to another guy I love, Sir Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. That was Warren Beatty's Oscar. I'm sorry. Hannibal Lecter's a supporting character in Silence of the Lambs. Jeffrey Rush as the somewhat ill-fated, tragic piano master, David Helfgott. It's a supporting performance. He doesn't show up until the movie's got like a half hour left, right? How did Tom not win the Oscar? But that's beside the point. Cruise had been a little quiet. He had taken a little bit of time. I mean, heaven forbid the guy goes on vacation. I remember the People magazine making a big deal about it. He was like jet skiing sometime in 95. What's he doing? Tom Cruise turns back on Hollywood. Hey, get fucked. I mean, give a guy a break. He'd already been working at a crazy level just up to that point in his career. Isn't the guy allowed to take some time off? He just got to work 100% of the time. Not everybody is Steve Martin working like a lunatic, or Michael Caine, or the late great Gene Hackman, who never seemed to stop working. Because some people they had to do it. It was their lifeblood. Hey, Cruise took a little time. Heaven forbid. But when I saw Mission Impossible opening day, I liked it. I would say that I would have, in a moment, I would have given it 3.5 stars out of 4. Now, a little bit of confusion. The first act is not really as complicated as it seems. The movie presents itself as being more complicated than it actually is. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but I didn't get that. There was all that CIA gobbledygook, to use the guy who wrote the screenplay, the great, also late great William Goldman. He wrote the final draft. He said we had to put in a lot of CIA gobbledygook, meaning that there were phrases that the average person, I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, like that sort of thing. But the film was super entertaining. Sorry about that. The movie was super entertaining. Yeah, sometimes the thing gives a little bit of issues. And I told everybody they had to see it. It wasn't as good as it maybe could have been on first viewing, and part of it was that I was still bothered by all of these questions about what the hell was going on in the first act. What were they doing at that reception? Was the whole thing a sham? Was it like... And then, as Tom Cruise's character of Ethan Hunt says, the whole operation was a mole hunt. There was so much stuff that didn't become clear until the second time through and watching the movie when it finally hit, because I didn't see it twice in theaters. I know a couple of people that saw it a second time and said, all right, well, it makes more sense. It actually plays better the second time when you realize all that nonsense at the beginning of the story. But when you, as now we can, young people can watch every Mission Impossible movie starting with the first. It's like with the Star Wars saga. But with the benefit of hindsight, and they say hindsight is often 20/20, but with the benefit of hindsight, the first Mission Impossible, for people who maybe have only seen the later ones, it plays like a straightforward spy thriller. It is closer to the first, Bourne Identity, which didn't have all of the kind of gadgets and gizmos. It is a tight, character-driven spy story. Whereas the later movies, which are phenomenal, there's more pyrotechnics, there's more of Tom Cruise giving, and this is not a criticism, I've never criticized Tom Cruise, giving more movie star style performances, and there's more almost winking at the audience, as serious as those films get. And what I want to point out also about Cruise, because of the extraordinary career that he's had, and even people in the business who are not known to go out of their way to praise others, such as Sean Penn, such as, my old Massapequa, I met the guy at Massapequa High School, although he's older than me, Stephen Baldwin. He's not somebody who necessarily will throw out compliments. I mean, on his podcast, it's called the One Bad Movie Podcast. He's not afraid to rip into people. But he was asked a question point blank. Do you see Tom? I know you know the guy. They work together on did he have a small role in Born on the 4th of July? Man, I should know this. That's embarrassing. That's the movie supposed to be set in my hometown of Massapequa, speaking of the Baldwin brothers. But Stephen Baldwin was asked point blank, do you see Tom, is he a movie star or a great actor? And without hesitation, Stephen Baldwin said, great actor. Yes, he's the biggest movie star ever, but I love him as an actor. I think he's terrific. And Sean Penn said the same thing. He said, you can't not respect what Tom does. Because Sean made a couple of big action movies. He did The Gunman about a decade ago, The Interpreter, some of the other films. But he said, I have nothing but respect for that guy. He is fantastic. He's great for the business, and he works so hard when he doesn't have to. So there is that. But the original Mission Impossible, if you've seen the later films and you go back to it, you will be surprised by how tight it is, how beautifully cast. I mean, getting Jean Reno as Krieger, what a masterstroke. A brilliant bit of casting. You know, and the thing with John Voight, without spoiling anything, in that era, Voight was he just chewed so much scenery. It's like it was his William Shatner era. We could call it that, and I'm not exaggerating. Of course, he's a much better actor than Shatner, and I love Shatner. He's a much better actor than Shatner, but he gave such colorful performances in that era. When you're talking Enemy of the State with Will, and as I mentioned, Gene Hackman, in Anaconda, the scene where he winks at Jennifer Lopez is like top 10 funniest moments I've ever seen in a movie. And of course, The Rainmaker with Matt Damon as Leo Drummond, he just doesn't stop chewing it in that film. Mission Impossible is a more straightforward performance as Jim Phelps. And that's all I'll say. But the movie was cast so beautifully, getting Emilio Estevez and Kristen Scott Thomas in a surprising role. Talking about a big year with Cruise, Kristen Scott Thomas had The English Patient later in the year. She was nominated for Best Actress for The English Patient. English Patient ended up being the big winner of 96, or films released in 96. But the first Mission Impossible was an enormous success. And the second film had a bigger budget, and you could see what they were trying to do. But I gotta be honest, I think the second film is the weakest in the series, despite the presence of an actor I really like in Brendan Gleeson, and another actor I think is great, Doug Ray Scott. And Thandie Newton, of course, terrific. But they tried too hard to mirror the plot. It's almost embarrassing to say this. They tried to mirror the plot of Casablanca. Not Casablanca, what am I talking about? The Hitchcock film Notorious. I would say it's closer to that than Casablanca, where you have a double agent and a woman who seems to be in love with one guy, but she's wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hooking up with another guy for spy reasons, and there's all this sort of stuff. But there is the Hitchcockian angle, which most people didn't get, and I did, and I'm like, this was a mistake. This movie should have been better. It's just okay. I love Mission Impossible 3. You want to talk about another human cheat code, a cheat code actor, somebody that we all miss, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The character of Owen Davian in that film, in lesser hands, would be speaking of, I talk about John Voight hamming it up, it could be that sort of scenery chewing performance. Philip Seymour Hoffman is so ice cold, deadly, without even raising his voice. He was a master actor. What an amazing talent. And he makes the movie. And if I'm asked, what's my favorite Mission Impossible thing? I think I'm going to say Mission Impossible 3. The stakes feel sky high. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, the way his character just sticks to he just won't move off his position. He is fearless. And it's an amazing performance by him. And the way that Tom reads his lines, the relationship with the character played by, and this is embarrassing, the actress who had been a TV star. It's bad that I can't remember her name. She was also in the movie Waitress. We're going to have to come back to that. It's a fucking joke that I can't remember that. Just too many colliding thoughts. But rather than go through all the films, one by one, they're all of such high quality. I know people that will swear and stand on business that the best film in the entire series is Ghost Protocol from 2011. And then there are those that say, no, it's Fallout and Dead Reckoning Part 1. And it must be mentioned that they were always going to be two parts. It was going to be Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Dead Reckoning Part 2, and I guess they felt that Final Reckoning was better. You don't have to call a movie what you think you're going to call it originally. Famously, in '83, when George Lucas and Richard Marquand and everybody, when they were getting what became Return of the Jedi together, the early posters said Revenge of the Jedi. And with a straight face, nobody was trying to make jokes at the time, they said, well, we don't really know that a Jedi would take revenge. Well, that's bullshit. Yeah, they would, as we found in the later films, or earlier films, depending on how you want to classify episodes 4, 5, and 6, because they were first, but then there were movies that are supposed to take place earlier where it appears the Jedi are taking revenge, and in 7, 8, 9, they sure as fuck are taking revenge. But the movies are of such high quality, and the ability to get actors who you wouldn't necessarily have expected to appear in spy thrillers or take roles where they're not leads, like getting Henry Cavill to play the character in, I think it was that Fallout? I think that was Fallout. I get some of the names confused because I've only seen Fallout once, I only saw Dead Reckoning once, and I've only seen Ghost Protocol once. To me, those movies, they don't have the rewatchability factor of the first and third, and that's just me. I mean, you tell me you're fucking stupid, Part 3 is the worst in the series, no problem. But Cruise's commitment, and many of us remember, and he isn't easy to kind of poke fun at because he does have those moments where he seems like he's almost from another planet, and then the Scientology stuff, and the marriage to Katie Holmes, which I hope that they had some happiness. I hope it wasn't all bad. And I'm a fan of Tom Cruise. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't always been a fan. I can take issue with some of the shenanigans and all of that. But I hope that he had some happiness with Nicole Kidman. I think they did. And I hope that he and Katie Holmes had moments of genuine connection, that it wasn't all negative. And I hope that he ends up playing a role in Suri's life, his daughter, with Katie Holmes. And listen, there were a lot of people ragging on him back then, saying there's no way that kid is his. That kid is his. She's very much his child. There's no doubt in my mind that that's his kid. Give me a fucking break. But when they were shooting the two films, and I think they shot them back to back, or that was the attempt, was to shoot them back to back, and then COVID happened. But Cruise took some heat for that audio recording. It should never have been released. I mean, there's stuff that goes on in the movie business. There's stuff that goes on in politics that I would argue we should not be privy to this. This is one of those things, I don't care who the president is. There are certain kinds of negotiations going on in public that the general public should not be privy to, in my opinion. So when Cruise took a little bit of guff, but then there were people that were saying, well, no, he's standing up for the business. Don't get mad at him. He's doing what he thinks is the right thing. But when everybody came back to work in Hollywood, when COVID had, we all remember this, when things started to quiet down late summer, early fall, and then he famously told a couple of the crew members, hey, you're not allowed to huddle like this. We can't afford to get shut down again. And he was not really speaking literally, but what he meant was, they're letting us go back to work, and many of you need this job for your regular, normal lives. Again, he was trying to connect with the other people on the crew, the people who needed to make mortgage payments and alimony payments and car payments. We can't afford to get shut down again. There are too many people that are counting on us, so knock this shit off or I'm going to have to replace you, or words to that effect. And it took way longer to finish those films. I mean, the shooting schedules, it may have been ultimately as long in actual production as speaking of Cruise, of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, which had, as far as I know, the longest production schedule in the history of cinema. Eyes Wide Shut began shooting. I had not graduated New York University Film School. I was still attending classes in the fall of 1996. Eyes Wide Shut had started filming when Cruise was on the press tour and doing interviews with David Letterman and guys like that. Not that there's anything wrong with Letterman or Leno or Into the Night with Rick Dees or whatever programs he aired at Arsenio, I think, was off the air by that point. But he had already started shooting Eyes Wide Shut. And Eyes Wide Shut did not finish principal photography until sometime in late 1998. That is a very long schedule. You don't need me to tell you that. And the two Mission Impossible the final two, Dead Reckoning and now Final Reckoning. It just took forever. And it's really difficult because people age, and you have to make sure the hair and the makeup and the clothing and everything has to be exactly so. Whoever the continuity person is on Final Reckoning, they should be getting an Oscar. And, and there's no such Oscar. But that's an Academy Award level thing right there. It doesn't seem like much, but when you have people looking for every possible goof, hey, Cruise looks like he's got a 5 o'clock shadow here. This must have been shot, in 2022, whatever. He had surgery on his eyes. You can tell the difference. Well, whatever the case might be. But I'm looking forward to Final. Sorry about that. So what I was saying, if you're going to have a kind of mysterious, menacing, frightening, villainous character, you need to find somebody who could believably go toe-to-toe with Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt. And Esai Morales is not an actor that I never would have imagined him. But it's such perfect casting. Esai Morales, very distinctive actor and a very distinctive looking individual. And Gen Xers, we remember him as Bob in the fantastic film La Bamba about the ill-fated singer Richie Valens, one of cinema's most underrated all-time performances, Lou Diamond Phillips as Richie Valens. But Esai Morales as Bob almost steals the movie from the star. And he just has such a natural character to himself, or a natural ability to relate, where he doesn't seem like, in La Bamba, he doesn't seem like an actor delivering lines. It feels like this is really the guy. And in his older era, because I know he had some success on TV, he was on, I don't think it was Law and Order, but it was it Homicide? But it was one of the cop shows. It may have been one of the Law and Order variants. I don't remember because I don't really watch that much TV. But in his older era, with this kind of silver fox look that he has going in Dead Reckoning, he is really an intimidating presence. And it's exactly what they needed. And I don't know how they came up with the idea of casting him in the first place, but it was ingenious. Just as the casting throughout the series was also just fantastic. Like, you can't even, you wonder with casting where they say, why did they get this guy? There's not a single role to me in any Mission Impossible movie where you're saying, oh my God, they fucked up. Why did they go with so-and-so? No, they got it. They got everything exactly right. And one of the ironies of of Dead Reckoning is that it got, by far, the best reviews of the entire series. The score was, I want to say it's in the upper 90s on Rotten Tomatoes. And we remember, well, I remember, many of you, if you're big fans, remember the way that Tom Cruise vigorously promoted both Barbie and Christopher Nolan's movie Oppenheimer. And then they ended up, because Barbenheimer was such a big deal, Dead Reckoning kind of underperformed globally, despite people seeing it, telling everybody, oh my God, this is the best Mission Impossible ever, words to that effect. It just didn't do as well as it would have at any other time if there had not been the phenomenon known as Barbenheimer. But Cruise's willingness to promote other movies, not just films that he had a piece of, because he has produced movies that he didn't star in, such as terrific sports film from the 90s with Billy Crudup, Without Limits, about the famous American distance runner Steve Prefontaine. Cruise originally was going to play Steve Prefontaine, and then it got to a certain point in history where he felt he kind of was aged out of the role, and so he just ended up being a producer. And that's a movie that he likes to get asked every now and then in an interview, said, hey, you executive produced the film about Steve Prefontaine. I know you wanted to star in it. And that's a topic that he can go off on, because Steve Prefontaine was one of Tom's, not surprisingly, favorite historical figures, hence why he wanted to star in and ended up just producing a movie that he is very proud of from the production standpoint. But I believe that Final Reckoning will be a massive monster hit, because even if Dead Reckoning didn't do as well as it probably should have at the box office, it did exceedingly well when it landed on streaming. And I saw it, I think I paid $15 to see it, I think, and this would have been about 2 years ago. Maybe it was more towards the fall of 2023. I think it was in the fall. But the film is stupendous. And if I'm asked, is there any way that Final Reckoning will outgross Top Gun Maverick? No, I don't think so. I mean, there are percentages. You could, as dumb as this sounds, you could find odds on this in Vegas. 100%. They do everything. You could bet on whatever the fuck you want. I would have it at least 50-1 against, because there are going to be other big movies out. And I just feel like Top Gun Maverick was so spectacular, and it hit at just the right time, the Val Kilmer angle, and they just happened to make a phenomenal movie. But I do expect that Final Reckoning will be a massive box office hit, and it's got to be, because the production costs are through the roof times 10. Just insane how much money this costs. But Christopher McQuarrie, the kind of brains behind the outfit, what an amazing writer, going all the way back to The Usual Suspects in the mid-90s, a movie that I also was in my overhyped movie series. I like it, but don't love it. I feel like the third act doesn't work. The ending doesn't work, but I am in the way minority on that one. As I always point out, I'm just giving an opinion like anyone else. But I'm looking forward to Final Reckoning, and I do think I'm going to see it in theaters. I haven't been to the movies in a while. But I think I will see it in theaters as a sort of a capper, a prologue, epilogue, watching the first Mission Impossible morning. It was a morning screening. I think it was at 10 a.m. of its opening day in 96. And now here we are in 2025, and we'll watch Final Reckoning also in theaters, hopefully on its opening day. So here we go. 5 days from today, we'll see the release of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And I hope you've enjoyed my little recap and reverie of this stupendously successful film series. This has been episode 515 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for taking this westward Sunday morning drive with me here on Long Island, New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.